Let's be real for a second. Hocking County, Ohio is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. If you have been out here, you get it. Rich with old history woven into those rolling hills, this place holds stories. Not just ghost stories, though, there are plenty of those. But rumors of strange lights, the grass man, and voices no one can explain. Some laugh it off. Some don't. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to prove a point. I'm telling my experience because something happened to me out here that I couldn't explain. And once that happens, it's kind of hard to pretend it's all just local legend. And now I'm sitting out here in the woods trying to explain it. This show was started to explore the unexplained, to pull apart strange encounters and ask what's real and what's not. It's about looking closer at the stories that don't fit and the truth being hidden in plain sight. This is episode 1, Voices in the Woods. Welcome to Before Dead Time Radio.
Welcome to my first episode of Before Dead Time Radio. I'm Ophelia. This show is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. I wanted to create a space to talk about strange things that people have experienced, weird encounters, local stories, and things that just don't always get talked about openly. Not dramatized, just honest. Now, for the next several weeks, we'll be focusing on one region in particular, and that'll be around Hocking County, Ohio. Now, this place has a long history of unusual reports, people seeing things in the woods, hearing things they couldn't explain, and walking away with stories they don't usually share unless someone really asks them. Now, it's not about proving anything. It's about looking closer at what people have actually experienced and letting their story speak for itself. Now, my co-host, Beau Carver, a longtime resident of Hocking County, he will be joining me a little later in the episode, and you'll hear more from him as the series goes on. But tonight, we're starting with something Hocking County is known for, and it's a long-running pattern of sightings that go back generations. People say they've seen something big out in the trees, so let's start there. Let's talk about Bigfoot, or whatever people think that they're seeing out there. Hocking County has been a known hotspot for sightings going back decades. And I'm not talking about off mentions in Facebook groups. I mean full reports, people out hiking, hunting, even just driving at night, who saw something they could not explain. Now, a lot of these stories can go back to the 1970s or 80s. That's when the reports really started to stack up, especially around Ash Cave, Wayne National Forest, and along the county lines between Hocking County and Fairfield County. Now, people would hear something moving through the woods, big, heavy footsteps. Not the kind of sound a deer would make, really not even close. A few people saw something tall and upright, maybe even hair covered, but they describe it as moving fast, but not in a panic, quiet and really intentional. Now, others didn't see anything at all, but they said they felt it, like they were being watched, and that feeling did not go away even after they left that trail. Recently, in 2017, there were track sightings out near the Hocking River, and it was also near the Rock Bridge State Nature Reserve. Now, there were big prints spaced really far apart for a normal stride, and a few were cast in plaster by folks from local Bigfoot groups. Now, while none of them could say for sure what made these tracks, nobody really offered a solid explanation either. They were bare prints, and they weren't human. The trails that get mentioned the most are familiar ones: Ash Cave to Cedar Falls, deep areas of Hocking State Forest, and a few of the back trails around Old Man's Cave. It's always the remote spots, the places where you lose signal, right? The parts of the hike where the silence just, I don't know, settles in. People have described hearing strange knocks, like something hitting a tree in rhythm. Others have had rocks tossed toward them, never hitting, just landing close enough to notice. A few said they've heard voices, but not clear ones, just enough sound to make you stop walking. So the question is it Bigfoot? Some people swear it is. Others think it might be something else entirely. Maybe it's something older, something that's tied to the land itself. I don't know. Whatever it is, the reports keep coming in, and they're not from ghost hunters or thrill seekers. Most of the time, they're from regular people who weren't looking for anything strange. They just ran into it. So if you're ever out that way near Ash Cave or Rockbridge, especially just before sunset, and you start to feel like you're not alone out there, well, you might not be. Now, this one is a story that came from someone local, not someone trying to get attention, just a quiet story that they shared when the conversation leaned that way. Now, they lived on a property near the edge of the woods, not far from Cedar Falls. They said they were used to usual noises, coyotes, owls, wind moving all through the trees all night long. And after a while, you stop noticing things like that. But one night, something did stand out, and it was late. It was after midnight, and they were both letting the dog out back one last time before bed. Now, the yard backs right up against the woods, no fence, just a tree line. That's when they heard it. 3 knocks, solid and slow, like someone hitting wood with something heavy. The dog froze and wouldn't step off the porch, just stood there staring. Now, a few seconds later, they heard a sound, and this is where it's hard to explain. Now, it wasn't some kind of a scream, not an animal, not a person either. It wasn't even a panic sound, she said. It was loud, steady, high pitched in a way that made their chest tighten, long enough to feel deliberate. They grabbed the dog and they went back inside. They did not go back out. They did not want to try to figure out what that was. They just locked up for the night. Now, that next morning, everything seemed normal from the house, but when they walked down toward the edge of the yard, just where the grass meets the trees, they found a few things they didn't set right with them. There were muddy footprints. They were bare, wide, and long. Not deep enough that someone had stomped through, but just a few steps like something heavy had been standing there. And nearby, a couple of branches were snapped up higher than a person could even reach without a ladder, not fallen from above, but broken, like something passed through and did not bother trying to go around them. Now, they said that dog wouldn't go near those woods for weeks after that, wouldn't even go to that side of the yard. They didn't try to name it. They didn't make guesses. They just said, if you're ever hearing something that knocks like that out here, don't wait around for what comes next. Now, Beau's going to join for a minute here to dig in some of the weirder things that he's experienced, and he has a brief story about what he believes is Bigfoot. Stick around.
Hi, my name is Beau, and I'm the co-host of Beyond Dead Time Radio. I wanted to hop on here and give you one of my personal experiences that I had as a young child. When I was about 9 years old, I lived in Zaleski State Forest in Vinton County, Ohio. One day, my cousin and I were outside playing, and about 50 yards from us was the edge of the woods. Both of us all of a sudden looked up. At the edge of the woods, there was something standing and watching us. It was extremely tall, had its arm up on a branch, and was swaying back and forth. What I noticed the most about it is that it was a light gray color. That stood out to me most of all. I can still see it, remember it detail for detail to this day. Years later, I had nearly forgotten about it, but I was watching a show that stated that there were several sightings in southern Ohio of a light gray colored Bigfoot in the mid 80s. And that's exactly when I saw this thing. So I have several other things that have happened to me over the years. And maybe I'll hop on again sometime and share another one.
It's strange how stories like that start to overlap. Different places, different people, but the same patterns keep showing up. And while a lot of reports come out of places like Hocking County, it's not just here. Now, there's one story out west that's always stood out to me, mostly because it wasn't just one person seeing something, it was five. Now, there's one story I always think about when people say Bigfoot sightings are just one off things or just someone misidentifying a deer or something in the dark. It didn't happen in Ohio. This was in Washington State near Mount St. Helens. It was 1924, and a group of miners had been working up in the mountains. Now, they'd seen huge tracks around their cabin, big human like prints, but wider. And they were a little on edge already. Now, then one night, whatever was out there, it came back. They said it started with rocks being thrown at the cabin, not pebbles, but actually big rocks. And then the walls started to get hit, and something was trying to get through the roof. This wasn't just noise, it was full on pounding, shaking the place. All five men inside were armed, and they were shooting through the walls, just trying to get whatever it was to back off. They called them 8 men at the time. They said they looked like tall, hairy figures with two legs. It went on for hours. By morning, everything was quiet again. No bodies, no blood, just wreckage around the cabin and those prints leading away into the woods. They packed up everything and left immediately. They didn't try to finish what they were working on, and one of them went straight to the authorities, and that's how the story got made. It made the newspapers, and now the spot's actually known as Ape Canyon. What's wild is that decades later, people still report seeing these things in that area. Strange figures, weird sounds, more of the same type of footprints. I'm not saying I know what happened out there, but I do know that when five grown men run off a mountain and leave all of their tools behind, something happened. And it wasn't just a raccoon. So I would like to tell a personal story of my own. When I was a kid growing up in Hocking County, we had a heavy snow. It was one night, late January, the kind that's thick and clean in the morning, deep enough that if anything moved through it, it would leave a clear trail. My father went out early to hunt, like he always did. He's hunted and trapped his entire life. He knows what belongs in the woods, what certain tracks mean, and where animals usually move, all of it. But that morning, he came back to the house not long after leaving. Didn't say much, just asked my mom and me to grab our boots and our coats. Told us there was something he wanted us to see. We followed him out toward the tree line behind the house, and that's when we saw the prints. Two sets, side by side. One was big, noticeably bigger than a person's foot. The other one was smaller, like a younger version. Not shaped like an animal we knew, long, wide, almost flat looking, but upright. Whatever it was walking on two legs. Now, those tracks didn't just stop. They came out of the woods together, walked a short distance, and then into the clearing, and then went straight back in again. There was no wandering, no hesitation, just a path out and then back. Well, we followed the line of prints to where they disappeared into the trees, and there was more than just snow disturbed. Branches that we could see completely bent and snapped off completely. We could see where something had clearly pushed through. It was like a trail had been made just wide enough for something large to move through, and it kept going deeper into the woods. My dad looked over the whole area for a long time, checked spacing, depth, angles, quiet the whole time. Eventually, he just said, "I've never seen anything like this." And coming from him, that meant something. He's been in the woods his whole life, hunted everything, tracked everything. Whatever made those prints, it wasn't anything he recognized. He didn't hunt that day, just said he didn't feel like it anymore. We never talked much about it again, but I never forgot how serious he was. Not afraid, just unsettled. Because whatever walked out of those woods that morning had clearly been there before and knew how to move through it like it belonged. Whatever it was came and went without a sound, just left behind some tracks, a few busted branches, and questions no one had an answer for. Stories like that don't always seem like a big deal at first, but they stick with you. And around here, they're not as uncommon as you'd think. My story reminded me of the family that confided in me about their personal experience, and I just couldn't debunk it. All right, well, that's where we will wrap it up today. Now, after hearing these stories and honestly comparing how many of them overlap, I want to see some of these places myself. So next week, I'm heading out to a few of the actual locations we've talked about in this episode. Ash Cave, Rock Bridge, and a couple of trails where sightings have been reported. Nothing dramatic, no big setup. I'm just going to walk through the area, record some audio, and see what it feels like to be there. And I want to take you along. I don't know if anything will happen, but I want to find out. And I am going to take you with me. If you've ever had your own experience out there, we'd love to hear it. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to prove anything. Sometimes just telling the story makes it feel a little bit more real. Check out my links below to follow me on Patreon and my website to share your story. Make sure you like and subscribe for upcoming videos. Next week, we'll be recording at a few locations that have been known for activity. You don't want to miss it. Thanks again for tuning in, and stay curious. And if you're walking in Hocking County at dusk and you hear a knock, don't knock back. I'm Ophelia, and this has been Before Dead Time Radio. Stay spooky.